Well, I wasn't planning to do a video about my window well, but it was such a beautiful day and there was so much traffic on the road, I figured why not. So right here behind me is my window well that I replaced. The house is 50 years old, window well's 50 years old, and it was galvanized steel, I believe. It was in pretty good shape, but I had two on the back side of the house that were more visible, and they actually rusted out. One of them was so bad that I could actually, after I pulled it out, it came out in pieces and I could just fold it up and throw it in the trash. This one here was actually in pretty good shape, but had a little flooding problem. Window well would fill up with water and flood into the basement. A nice slow trickle, but it can make a real mess in the basement. Caught it in time, but it was time to fix it up. So wanted to share the video of my window well when it was full of water. Not full, but there's probably a couple inches of water in there, and I was pouring through the you can see a little trickle in the video where the water's trickling down from the window itself. It's a single pane window. That's the way they did things 50 years ago, I guess. I haven't really figured out how to put a second pane or an extra layer of glass in there to get a little more insulation. But anyway, back to the window well. Not a window well expert. I did the two in the back. That's basically your basic dig a hole, pull the window well out, put the new window well in, cover it up with dirt, throw a little gravel in the bottom, it's done. Never had any leaking problems before, haven't had any leaking problems since. Not an expert. But I did have a couple observations that I made while I was watching other people's videos and while I put mine in. Number one, four main things. Number one is make sure your ground slopes away from your house. That's very important. Number two is I don't know how people can buy a window well and a cover that match. You go to their websites, the dimensional information is so sketchy. You go to Home Depot or Lowe's, very little information. Number three that I wanted to discuss was I hadn't seen anything on this, but adding a wire, because this window well is plastic, and it comes kind of flattened out. So the way to straighten it out is, it looked like most people just drop it in the ground and they kind of pack it with dirt and straighten it out. Add some wire to it, drill a couple holes, add some wire. It makes it very simple to hold it in shape. And number four was attaching it to so I've got cinder block walls, so I would say that it's not very difficult to put screws in the cinder block walls. So I use some Tapcon screws to attach it, but more importantly, what I hadn't seen anybody do is, I don't know why people weren't applying some sort of silicone or adhesive to the window well before they put it in. I've seen a couple, 2, 3, where they caulk it afterwards, and I've worked on cars a lot, and you know, if you have something you're trying to seal, and I know we do it on our houses all the time, we're always caulking basements or somewhere in your siding or something around your windows, you put caulk. That's not the best way to seal it. The best way to seal it is to use some sort of a silicone gasket or something and put it between the two surfaces, not on the edge of the surface. That doesn't work on cars, so I decided it's not going to work on a window well. So anyway, let's go back to item number one. So if you're still interested in watching this video, item number one, slope away from the house. Now this one here, I did have a little slope problem. I got a very slight slope here. You can't even hardly see it from this view. It's probably not sloped even a half an inch from the wall until you get to the end of the window well. Ground is a terrible sponge. It all depends on what kind of ground you have actually. And for example, when I put in the window well, I washed the walls off. I sprayed it all off and everything, and I came back a couple hours later and there was still a puddle of water in the bottom of the hole. So you got to try and keep the water away from the wall, keep it away from the window well as much as you can. And for the first step in that, slope away from your house. Number two is going to the websites and trying to find a cover. I decided to go ahead with a cover and went a little bit overkill. So I went with a 36 diameter, which is a half circle. And it's not quite half a circle. according to the dimensions. I didn't double check this one because I'll come up tell you what my solution was, but it's 36 inches wide, but it's I think it's 16 inches from the wall, so that's not quite a perfect circle. And then they want to sell you a cover, and they come in all sorts of different sizes, 37s and 42s, and where are they measuring it from? The pictures don't show, at Lowe's or Home Depot or even at the website. The company that supplies both these products, the cover and the well, is a company called Shape. And in their description of their product, they said this cover is suitable to be used with this well. I think it's a 3718, anyway. But it matched the cover with the well, and that's the only way I could find any sort of assurance that the cover was going to match the well. So I went ahead and bought those. Prices were all about the same. It's 20 bucks, 20 something for the cover, 20 something for the well. So that was my solution for getting a cover and a well that matches, instead of trying to mix and match different brands and trying to figure out the dimensions and blah blah blah. Number three is I got the well, and it kind of comes flattened out just from handling and storage and whatever. So what I did was, it seemed kind of intuitive to me, is to drill a hole in each corner of the well, and top and bottom. And I got, this is an 18-inch deep one, and take a piece of wire and run it from each hole. So there's a wire running across the top, and there's a wire running across the bottom, and I can adjust the wire and bring the semicircle, bring it in, or let it open up a little bit so that it's the right dimension for the cover. So you do that, you can put the cover on it, adjust the wire, get the size fixed, and you don't have to mess with that anymore. You don't put it in the hole, and you're not trying to level, and you're not trying to square it up before you're trying to drive screws and blah blah blah. Just put a wire in between there, and I could take the well, drop it in there, dig a little more, take it out, in, out, and it held its shape. The wire, you can either cut it off or leave it on. It doesn't really matter. I ended up taking the top wire and just cutting it off. Actually, I didn't have to cut it. It's just twisted. You just take the wire off after it's buried in the ground. And the bottom wire I just left in there. So going on to number 4 was attaching the well to the basement. I decided I was going to use Tapcon. I think there's some other videos that show Tapcons. You want to get the hex head. I'll have some information down below on what I would recommend. I happen to have some Tapcon screws, and they were a little long, but I had them. So, and I only used 2 per side. And I also used some to seal it up. I used just liquid nails, the standard liquid nails. I'll get a picture of it in here too. And what I did was, after you get your window well in there, and you've got it where it's kind of even, and you can kind of measure the length from your siding or whatever point you want to measure it from, and that kind of gets it level. Since it's sitting against the wall, it's kind of square. Once you've got it all set, I had a couple of rocks that I put underneath there to kind of give it a stable setting point. Took the thing out, and then put 2 heavy beads of liquid nails on each flange, and then take that and put it back in and set it in. And then I drilled one hole at a time, and put in 1 Tapcon screw at a time. And each time you can make a little adjustment if you have to before you put in the second one. So I did 1 at the top on this side, 1 at the top on the other side, and it's so satisfying to see that liquid nails just kind of ooze out. And I'll include a picture here just to show that there's that heavy bead of liquid nails just looks great as it just oozed out just a little bit. So you don't have to caulk afterwards to seal it up. It's pretty well sealed. The liquid nails is supposed to work indoor, outdoor. It's kind of an all-purpose, not necessarily the greatest construction adhesive, but I think it'll work well for this application. So I think that's about all I wanted to cover in terms of observations that I wanted to share with you. Other than that, the only other thing I did was the cover, which is not critical. Like I said, getting this sealed up to keep the water out from going in. You're not really, you're trying to keep the water from going from the side. And the ground gets saturated and then the water seeps in right from the side and it ends up in your window well. Get the sides sealed up. But I decided to go the extra mile and just throw a cover on it. When I put the cover on it, the funny thing about it is that the siding, there's a gap between the siding and the cover. And it's probably, I'm gonna say it's about 1/2 inch. So what that means is any water that happens to hit the siding and runs down your siding is gonna end up going behind the cover and into your window well, which kind of defeats the purpose of having a cover on your window well. So what I did was I made a little drip molding, and I had some old siding laying around, so I cut a piece of the old siding off and then kind of bent it into shape, and I've got 3 screws holding it on, and it dips down underneath the siding, so any water that hits the siding hits this drip rail and then goes onto the cover, and then it drains off into the ground. So I attached it with 3 brass screws, so I shouldn't have to worry about any corrosion or rust dripping down onto the cover. Not that anybody's on this side of the house. This is on the dark side of the house, always in the shade. Nobody comes back here, but anyway, that's my video, and I hope this is helpful. Anybody else that's going to be working on their own do-it-yourself project for a window well. Like I said, not an expert. Watch the other videos, watch the experts do it. Maybe they know more, but I just wanted to share some of that information with you. Thanks for watching.